You think you're safe because you're comfortable, but here's the truth. Comfort is a silent killer. It sedates your potential, it lulls your ambition to sleep, and if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day realizing you never really lived. You just coasted and called it a life. Comfort feels safe, but it's a lie. Comfort feels like home. It's the familiar couch, the predictable job, the routine that asks nothing new of you. But here's the truth most never say out loud. Comfort is seductive because it's safe, and safety is a basic psychological need. But when comfort becomes your identity, it turns from a refuge into a cage. In psychology, this is known as the comfort zone. It's where your behaviors are predictable, your outcomes are consistent, and your stress is low. But it's also where growth dies. You stop reaching, stop risking, stop becoming. And over time, a subtle despair creeps in. The kind you can't name but feel deeply, like something inside you is suffocating. This is the paradox. The safer your life feels, the less alive you often become. Because meaning, purpose, transformation, they don't live in comfort. They live in tension, in challenge, in uncertainty. When you avoid discomfort, you're not just avoiding fear, you're avoiding your future self, the one who's more resilient, more courageous, more whole. Growth demands exposure to emotional friction. It requires you to stretch past the version of you that's merely surviving. Your nervous system might scream that risk is danger, but your soul knows that stagnation is death. You were not designed for sedation. You were designed to evolve. So no, comfort isn't your friend. It's a mirage, a temporary calm that keeps you from the storm that would set you free. The life you want, it's waiting on the other side of discomfort. And the moment you stop worshipping safety is the moment you begin to live. The biology of avoidance, why your brain craves the easy path. Your brain's primary job is to keep you alive, not to make you extraordinary. It's wired for efficiency and survival, not for courage or greatness. The moment you encounter resistance, your brain sounds the alarm. It whispers, stay safe, do what you know, avoid pain. This is rooted in evolutionary psychology. Our ancestors survived by avoiding threats, physical, emotional, social. So the brain learned to prioritize the known, even if the known is unfulfilling. That's why comfort feels good. It signals predictability. But in today's world, the threats aren't lions or famine. They're failure, judgment, and rejection. Your limbic system, especially the amygdala, processes those modern threats as if your life is in danger. That's why quitting your job, launching your dream, or even speaking your truth feels terrifying. Your brain doesn't distinguish between ego death and physical death. It just wants you to avoid the discomfort. But what's biologically protective is psychologically imprisoning. Because while your brain is busy avoiding pain, your soul is aching to evolve. And here's the kicker. Your brain can be retrained. Neuroplasticity means you can build new patterns, ones that favor courage over avoidance, but you have to move through fear, not around it. You have to teach your nervous system that growth is safe, even when it's unfamiliar. Avoidance feels like self-preservation, but over time, it becomes self-sabotage. The easy path is not always the right one. The brain is an incredible tool, but it's a terrible master. You were born with fear, but you were also born with fire. And when you stop letting biology dictate your destiny, you begin to reclaim your power. Numbness is not peace, how comfort masks suppressed emotions. There's a difference between feeling safe and feeling nothing. Too often we confuse emotional numbness with peace, but real peace is alive, it's vibrant, present, and whole. Numbness, on the other hand, is what happens when you live in comfort for too long. When you avoid risk, conflict, or emotional exposure, you slowly build a wall between yourself and your truth. It starts subtly, zoning out with screens, avoiding hard conversations, staying busy to escape silence. Over time, it becomes chronic. You stop feeling deeply, you become emotionally muted. Psychologically, this is a defense mechanism. It's your psyche protecting you from overwhelm. But what protects you can also imprison you. Because the emotions you suppress don't disappear, they accumulate. They settle in the body, showing up as anxiety, fatigue, or even illness. When you stay in comfort, you avoid not just external discomfort, but inner excavation. You don't just avoid failure, you avoid your own sadness, anger, and unmet needs. And that emotional backlog weighs you down. Carl Jung said, "What you resist persists." The longer you avoid your feelings, the more power they gain. The less you feel, the less you heal. Real peace requires honesty. It asks you to feel what you've buried, to grieve what you've postponed, to meet yourself in the discomfort and say, "I see you. I'm not afraid." Comfort numbs, but it never nourishes. True well-being is not the absence of pain. It's the presence of wholeness. And wholeness can only come when you dare to feel again. So if your comfort feels like emptiness, listen closely. That's your soul asking to be heard. And if you're brave enough to listen, you'll realize feeling deeply is the beginning of freedom. The myth of stability. Why security is often self-betrayal. Stability is one of the most praised virtues in modern society. Get a stable job, build a stable life, aim for stability in your relationship. But few people question what that stability is actually costing them. In psychology, we often talk about the tension between the true self and the adapted self. The adapted self is the version of you that learned how to survive by fitting in, pleasing others, and chasing what society told you was safe. Stability appeals to the adapted self. It feeds its hunger for approval and security. But the true self, it withers in stability without meaning. Security isn't inherently wrong, but when it becomes your highest goal, you trade aliveness for predictability. You start making decisions not from passion, but from fear. You stay in jobs that dull your soul. You remain in relationships that are emotionally dead. You shrink your dreams into digestible goals, goals that won't disrupt the image of success you've been sold. And over time, your life becomes a performance. You feel like a stranger behind your own eyes. This is how security becomes self-betrayal. You silence your intuition to maintain appearances. You suppress your desires to avoid rocking the boat. You abandon your path to stay on the well-paved road. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, subtle, and devastating. The cure? Radical honesty. Ask yourself, am I building the life I actually want, or one I was told to want? Am I truly safe, or just comfortably numb? Sometimes what you call stability is actually your fear dressed in logic, and the moment you stop betraying your soul for the illusion of safety, you begin to come alive again. The price of comfort, how settling stunts your soul. Settling is the quiet thief of dreams. It doesn't come with a bang, but with a slow fade, like a dimmer switch slowly lowering the light inside you. When you choose comfort over challenge, you aren't just avoiding discomfort, you are denying your soul its chance to grow. Psychologically, this is often rooted in learned helplessness or conditioned safety seeking. The more you stay in comfort, the less you believe in your ability to change or take risks. You begin to see yourself as a victim of circumstances rather than the author of your life. This mindset breeds passivity, and passivity stunts the soul's natural hunger for growth. Your potential isn't a destination, it's a dynamic force, demanding movement, evolution, and sometimes struggle. Settling tells you it's enough to survive, but deep inside, your spirit knows survival is not enough. It craves expression, impact, and authenticity. Every time you settle, you trade pieces of your future self for temporary peace. You shrink your dreams, lower your standards, and silence your inner calling. This might feel safe, but it's a slow suffocation of the creative fire that makes life meaningful. The emotional cost is high. Chronic dissatisfaction, anxiety masked as comfort, and a haunting sense that you're living someone else's life. The psychological cost? The hardening of your identity into a version that fears failure more than it craves fulfillment. To reclaim your power, you must acknowledge this price. Comfort isn't just easy, it's expensive, and the currency is your soul's growth. Resistance is growth's best friend. growth demands resistance. This is a truth that the mind resists because it associates resistance with pain and struggle. But resistance is not the enemy, it's the guidepost pointing toward your potential. In therapy and psychology, resistance is seen as a sign of conflict between old limiting beliefs and emerging truths.